Hey, what's up, ladies, gentlemen, and others? It's Joe Boz. This is Boz Comics. And the new trailer for Spider Man Far From Home just came out. Um, I'll say it was a like a pretty intriguing trailer as far as trailers go. But today I want to talk about why, in spite of what I will admit was a pretty good trailer, I just can't get excited for the movie. Um, so the first thing I have to say is spoilers for Avengers Endgame. Okay, it's a little tough to talk about one of the key problems I have with MCU Spider-Man in general at this point without talking about Endgame. Um, but excuse me. Also, apologies if you can hear the air conditioner going off in the back. It's just really humid here today where I am, and I'm just not willing to suffer in silence. Anyway, so Far From Home. Okay, a couple of things right off the bat. So Tom Holland is a great actor. I just don't like his Peter Parker. I don't like his Spider-Man. Jake Gyllenhaal is amazing. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I will watch literally anything and everything that he is in, including this movie. I don't don't mistake me. Just because I can't get excited for it doesn't mean that I'm not willing to go see it and give it a fair shake. But even with Jake Gyllenhaal, one of my favorite actors, seriously, watch Nightcrawler and Donnie Darko. Holy shit, just those two alone. Prisoners. I mean, God, Jesus. Anyway, in spite of the presence of the always wonderful Jake Gyllenhaal, I just can't get hyped for this movie. First and foremost, because MCU Spider-Man is not Spider-Man. Spider-Man has real problems, like real problems. He's an everyman who is relatable and kind of has to get by on little more than his powers and his God-given talents. His great resilience and his intellect. It was bad enough in Homecoming when Peter just becomes completely reliant on Tony Stark. Everything is about Tony Stark living up to Iron Man, impressing Mr. Stark. Mr. Stark, he calls him. Jesus Christ. Impressing Mr. Stark, earning a spot on the Avengers. And then we get into Infinity War, and Peter therein is basically Tony's sidekick. He's barely his own person at all whatsoever. He's basically a Stark employee who, more than he seems motivated by anything personal, he really seems to want to do Mr. Stark proud. Because he's like a father figure, because he's Mr. Super Guru Science Guy. And then we get into Endgame. And this is where I said spoilers. So we get into Endgame, and Tony Stark fucking dies. In a great heroic moment. I should note, I don't have a problem with MCU Tony Stark at all whatsoever. I maintain to this day that Iron Man is the best MCU movie. Yeah, being the first one, you can tell how depressed I am by that fact. But anyway, I don't have a problem with MCU Iron Man outside of what he has done to their version of Spider-Man. So Tony Stark dies, and Peter seems beside himself in this new trailer. He seems all about like filling the void that Iron Man left behind. He makes at least one reference, I think multiple references in the trailer, to having to be the next Iron Man. To really kind of step in and fill that empty space left in the wake of Tony's passing. And it's very predictable, of course, the ultimate resolution. I would almost, if I wasn't so broke, I would bet money that the ultimate resolution of the film is clearly going to be, Peter, you don't need to be Tony Stark. You don't need to be Iron Man. You just need to be your own person. You should just be Spider-Man. Well, but like, come on. Come on. This is really the MCU version of Peter Parker is just, it's just Kid Iron Man. You know, add that to the fact that, so they basically took Genki from the Miles Morales comics, and Miles Morales is the second Ultimate Spider-Man from another universe, who then got, the Ultimate Universe, who then got folded into our universe. He's the main character of the wonderful animated Into the Spider-Verse film. If you guys haven't seen that, it's a great movie. Check it out. Miles Morales, though, in the comics has a best friend named Genki. Genki's a nickname, I believe. I didn't read a lot of the Miles Morales stuff. I didn't find Miles terribly interesting as a character, honestly. I wanted to like him, but I couldn't get into it. But I know that he has like a best friend. They both go to like some super swanky like school for gifted kids. And his friend Genki is this we'll say very hefty boy. Of some kind of Asian descent, and he's Miles's best friend. Well, they basically just kind of lifted that part and parcel out of the Ultimate books with Miles Morales, and they grafted it onto Peter Parker. So now, he's not Genki, he's Ned Leeds. He's like a tall, like early 30s, like redheaded dude that Peter used to work alongside at the Daily Bugle like forever ago, and used to compete for Betty Brant's affections. It's like they just randomly grabbed this fucking character from Spider-Man history and went, yeah, whatever. This best friend character can just instead of just giving him the name, he was so obviously inspired by. Let's just grab this other character randomly. There's nothing to do with the character whatsoever. I'm just nonsensically gonna graft this character's name onto this other stolen character. We're just going to create this abomination mishmash to be the comic relief best friend character, the man in the chair, and there you go. And then we move on to the whole Mary Jane debacle, where they had Zendaya, who seems like a lovely girl. Like, her acting is fine, playing this really abrasive, tongue-in-cheek sort of woke character, who kind of is just like, just negging, on Peter and his friends, but like in a kind of an affectionate, almost like older sister kind of way. It's obvious they're setting him up in this film, the sequel, to be like a love interest, Zendaya's character, who they name MJ at the end of Homecoming. And they're really leaning into that MJ shade. All through the first movie, they're calling her Michelle. And then at the very end, it's like, oh, my friends call me MJ. Lol, check it out, Spider-Man fans. This is our MJ. And then they start leaning into it like really hard now in Far From Home. And again, it's okay. Nothing about this is like Mary Jane. Nothing. It's not even the fact that she's like mixed race and she doesn't have red hair. Like, that's fine. She's a very pretty girl. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. At least not on its own. Like, would I prefer comic accurate MJ? Yeah, because MJ is a beautiful redhead with a very iconic look. I think she was one of my first comic book crushes as a child. I wanted to get me a wife like MJ. My wife now is nothing like Mary Jane Watson, but she is a lovely woman. So please, honey, don't smother me in my sleep. You may not be MJ, but I love you very much. Anyway, Zendaya is not MJ either. Not only does she not physically resemble the character like at all, her personality is also not. I mean, we know that she's obviously kind of got like a heart of gold, but she's like practically a bully. She's kind of just a snot-nosed punk to everyone. Her whole personality just kind of seems to be like, I'm rude and sassy, which seems to be the new form of women's empowerment these days. But that's a whole other can of worms for another day, another video. So again, they've kind of taken this name, only now like from a beloved character with decades of history behind her. But now they've grafted the name onto somebody who not only doesn't resemble the part, but also emotionally, psychologically, in terms of personality and demeanor, just does not seem to fit the role at all. And again, that's not an indictment of Zendaya. She did fine with what she was given. She's fucking just fine to watch. She's a good time. She's got some funny lines to her. I thought they were kind of obnoxious, but haha, funny, cool, whatever. You know? If they just kept her like being Michelle, I totally would have been fine with her being like this original character that Peter could maybe befriend and even go on some dates with, whatever. Like, I would have preferred that. Like, our version of Peter Parker, who's already so different, is going to kind of hook up with this new girl, this OC, if you will. That's what this really reads like. It reads like a reboot fanfic, this whole mess. In any case, I really just, oh, that's the other thing, Uncle Ben. So Uncle Ben I don't think he's been brought up once in all 3 movies now. Wait, does quick math. Technically 3 so far, 4th one coming out, 4 MCU appearances now of Peter Parker / Spider-Man. I don't think Uncle Ben's name has been said once. It was fine in Civil War, right? Because it's like, we've only got about 15 to 20 minutes of Spider-Man in total. I don't even think it was that much, actually. It might have been closer to 10 minutes. We've only got like a few minutes of Spider-Man footage in the entire movie. And we don't want to waste time kind of establishing this hero all over again. Fans, even just movie fans, they've sat through like 2 franchises now. They've had 5 previous movies talking all about Spider-Man. It's like, we don't need to see Batman's parents killed again, and we don't need to see Uncle Ben die. I think that's kind of debatable if you're going to do an origin story, but whatever. That's fine. I think you literally could have had like a flashback sequence that lasted less than a minute, but whatever. But that's fine. I get it. I got it. I had no problem with it. That's cool. I get where you're coming from. But like, we don't talk about Ben at all. And so to bring this back full circle, I really hate the fact that like, foundationally, like everything with this Peter seems to be about Tony Stark. And it just seems so disrespectful, right? Honestly, like, do we even really get to know this Peter Parker? I mean, do we really? Because if you take out the Uncle Ben shit, like, what do you really have? We know that, like, something bad happened to this Peter Parker. He felt like he couldn't stop it. But he doesn't seem guilt-ridden. He doesn't seem that socially awkward. He has the attentions of somebody like Michelle. Oh, that's the thing too. By kind of grabbing Peter Parker and transplanting him into Miles' story. They literally just took Miles' story, cut out any of the racial politics, any of those racial themes that they wanted to explore in the Ultimate Comics. And then they went, no, we're just going to slam Peter Parker in there. And so, but now you've put him in this like gifted academy program where he's not really bullied. He's not much of an outcast. They're all nerds. They're all quirky. They're all weird. And it's fine. That doesn't work now. The most they do is they go, oh, well, Peter is like sometimes unreliable. Okay, that's just cliche. Like, that's okay. That's every secret identity superhero ever. I guess it's kind of interesting in the context of the MCU where we really don't have secret identities outside of our dear boy, Mr. Parker. But really, when you look at this, like, what do we know? Like, something bad happened, and he's kind of motivated to do good, I guess, because he can. We've never seen Uncle Ben. We've never heard with great power comes great responsibility. It's just never happened. This Spider-Man is an enigma who just really seems to want to live up to the legacy of Tony Stark. Because he's a good kid, I guess. Like, really, I have to watch the movies again. I'll give it that. But like, his personality seems to be like, fucking, I don't know. I want to impress Iron Man, and I will never give up. ah, ah. Everything he has, like, Jesus, it's all like it's like the old Iron Man channel. You know, people were like, "Oh, if they get rid of Robert Downey Jr., his contract's up." Spoilers, you know, we already covered that. He dies. Well, what are they gonna do? Well, it's pretty obvious to me. They're not gonna really replace Iron Man with War Machine. They've already got their new Iron Man. It's Peter fucking Parker. You know, I didn't like this shit when my arch nemesis Dan Slott did this in Amazing Spider-Man. You know, when he did the whole Parker Industries bit and literally made Peter so much like Iron Man that people were calling it out in the comics. You know, people were calling bullshit. I didn't like it then, and I sure as hell don't like it now. Because at least in the comics, we didn't like undermine everything about the character. Just, you know, most things, because Dan Slott sucks. But no, this was a dumpster fire. I really hated okay, I shouldn't say I hated anything to do with the MCU Spider-Man. It's more just it's been nothing but disappointing. You know, was Homecoming a good movie? Yes. I think it was a good movie. I think in the moment I had a really good time. When I was walking home with my wife, I thought about it though, and I was like, it was all right. I don't know, it was okay. And then the more I thought about it, the more I just kind of had a lot of distaste for it. Um, Here's the thing. Everyone likes to talk shit about the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, but in spite of all their problems, of which there are certainly many, those movies were far more true to the idea, the core idea of who and what Spider-Man is, you know, who he is, what he represents, than what's now going to be a duology, arguably a trilogy if you include his introduction in Civil War. But you know, I think Far From Home is going to be enjoyable. I think I will watch it. It will be a movie. I will have a good time. There'll be some fun references, some cool sequences. There'll probably be some moments that kind of pull at my heartstrings. Like, I'm going into it fully expecting to enjoy it on some level. I don't think I'm going to think it's a bad movie. But I also just, I can't get hyped for it. Because it might be a decent movie. But these aren't Spider-Man movies. And it doesn't look like that's changing anytime soon.